And welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate y'all so much for joining us here on this Wednesday evening, or if it's one of your favorite places later on in the week to check out podcasts and see what is going on in the wide world of sports. It is DJ, and yes, you are about to hear this correctly. I am joined once again by my co-host, who is back from the gulag. He has survived, and he is still here. Kelcey is back to join us. Kelcey, welcome back, my good friend.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a long 2 weeks of coughing and wanting to die. But yeah, no, we're all good now. No more pneumonia. Well, there's still pneumonia, but there's less pneumonia, and that's the important thing because I might get to celebrate this weekend. We're not sure yet.
Hey, you know what? You need to be prepared just in case there's a lot going on. And like you said, we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but there's some stuff pertaining directly to your head and your overall well being that we'll be getting into later. But first things first, we're going to, instead of talk about what makes your heart feel good, we're going to talk about something that's right in your back alleyway to start things off. And that's going to take us right into the tip off. And the tip off brought to you by our good friends over at SeatGeek. Use code Belly Up Sports. Get yourself $20 off your first set of tickets for any sporting event, concert, comedy show. You need tickets. Get them at SeatGeek. Use code Belly Up Sports, $20 off. And we talked about going right to Kelcey's backyard in Northeast Ohio. We're going to go with, I'm going to say, headline-grabbing statement from Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the Browns, more or less saying that they took a big swing and a miss on the Deshaun Watson trade, who, by my accounts, it is April 2nd of 2025, which means they still have him under contract for about 2 more seasons, give or take, and about 80-something million dollars they owe him, and 50-plus million in dead cap. So more or less signaling the end of the Watson era with technically still 50% of the money to go, give or take. So, Kelcey, what are your thoughts on this? I kind of want you to go first. We haven't heard from you much in a while. Is this the end of the Watson era? Was this just Jimmy Haslam doing what he does best and sometimes just speaking without actually saying anything? Or what are we thinking about this? This felt like an undertone a little bit.
Yeah, it took a lot longer than it should have. This should have been the day after they made the signing. Like, oh crap, I made a mistake. I was drunk. Sorry, that should have been the excuse he used. I honestly, this is yeah, it's writing on the wall that it should have happened sooner, but it's writing on the wall for the future. Honestly, the first writing on the wall was Myles Garrett's comments after signing the contract of he was past point blank. Have you been told what's going to happen with the quarterback situation next year? And how does that make you feel? And him saying, well, I re-signed, didn't I? So that should tell you a lot of what is already writing on the wall for Watson. And look, you know what? I don't wish ill upon any person in the world, but when you're a terrible person, I don't feel bad for you at all if this is the situation for you. Plus, you got a bag. Go, yeah. There's an island that you can go hang out on. But you know what? As far as the Haslam saying it, I think it's silly that Jimmy Haslam wanted to put his wife on blast like that. I know he has to because the NFL requires it because technically speaking, she's the owner of the team. He's not allowed to be the official owner of the team.
Yeah,
Doesn't
that's
stop him.
yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what it means at the end. I don't know. Maybe get Dak Prescott. Go sign him. Call as well.
That would be something. They pulled in the original breaker of contracts to go with the new highest paid quarterback, if I'm not mistaken, and Dak as well. That'd be a whole lot of money invested into 2 number 4s. I have no idea how they pull that off, but it would be something. I don't know who's paying for that or how they make that switcheroo happen. But I also wanted to note with that, we kind of mentioned it. It very much is. It almost signals like, all right, they're trying to line up contracts with Myles Garrett's extension. Some of the other ones, maybe they think they can. He's probably not playing this year with that Achilles second injury, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, the timeline has him pretty much out next season, if not most of the way through it. Maybe they're thinking, all right, we're getting through the season, and then he's gone. We will eat the dead cap in like a year and a half or something like that. Maybe that signals he has played his last game. I don't really know for sure. Only they know, but it is the first time, and it took long enough to finally admit we might have made a mistake, which even back when it happened, a lot of people were like, all right, we get trading for the talent if you're willing to overlook some of the issues, which none of us condone, but clearly they didn't care about that. But you're giving up a lot for a guy who hasn't played and hasn't had above 500 record in like 3 years at the time. Like, that's a lot you're giving up there, and I don't say breaking the rules. You're breaking the unwritten rules. You're breaking the league's bank by giving him a fully guaranteed contract of that magnitude. So you destroyed all the other teams hate you. Now your fans hate you, at least half of them. Your team probably hates you, especially once he started playing and the juice was not worth the squeeze. So actually at that point, it feels like more or less the biggest issue was what how do you get out of this? And I feel like this is the owner basically saying, you know what, we're gonna ride with Kenny Pickett and maybe Kirk Cousins and whatever else comes up in over the offseason. Maybe they do draft Shador or Jackson Dart or something like that, Jalen Milroe, whatever it might be. Maybe they do go with the draft pick and make that happen. What will also be interesting, at least for me as I look at it, is if he is clear to come back next season, do they even risk letting him play? Like, let's say it's late November, they're already in the tank, and they say, hey, you know what? He's cleared to go. Do you go put him back out there and play him, or do you just sideline him the whole year? Be like, all right, you know what? Just stay over there. We are going to see if you can get healthy, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a little bit there that I'm curious about happening for sure. The next thing I'm curious about too is that we'll kind of debate this part a little bit. There's been a lot of trades in sports history, a lot of bad ones, especially, and not just bad for like just really bad. And it's one thing when it's bad for both teams. The catch is when it is excruciatingly bad for one team while the other team makes out like a bandit in the night. So the question I pose for you here is, does this take the cake as the worst trade in sports history? Is this officially the one that has taken it over? And I'll go and start with this one. My thoughts on it are, I think it takes the cake as the worst trade in sports history when you factor in the contract, the fact that you got 19 games out of him so far. You're with 19 total touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. So you're more or less, he's made like what, 150 million during that time, give or take. So you're almost paying him 8-ish million, if my terrible math is correct, per touchdown, which is a touchdown per game. Just miserable, will not get it done for what you've given up and what you basically failed to do with the team. On top of that, you haven't got the games. He's been injured a lot. Your salary cap's been, you're kicking the can down the road. Eventually, it's going to come home to roost at this point. You just kind of have to wait it out. So you've wasted some really prime years for some key contributors. And on top of that, you basically sacrificed your moral compass in hopes of us getting games, and it backfired full scale on both, especially considering a couple other things have popped up during his time there too. It has been, you sacrificed everything and it cost you everything, and you gained nothing in return. Maybe a nice little spike in jersey sales for a few months at some point, some very inappropriate T-shirts that you didn't technically get any revenue from. It feels like the true worst trade in sports history, because even when you look on the Texans side, they have a very bright future. They have a franchise quarterback. You look at, obviously, there's been a lot of picks being traded during that point. So of those picks that the Browns traded, they ended up being converted into Jahmyr Gibbs, Brian Thomas Jr., and I believe, I can't remember who the other one was off the top of my head. I think it might have been Paris Johnson is who it might have ended up being. I'm not 100% sure, but that is three very, very darn good players that you did not get a chance at. And you still were rolling out Joe Flacco, PJ Walker, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, famous Jameis Winston, and soon to be Kenny Pickett / Kirk Cousins. Like, yeah, I think it takes the cake. Honestly, it might take the cake for me, since you all that factored in, plus you more or less sold your moral soul on top of it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the worst, but it's definitely top two and maybe definitely top three and not number three. I do think there's one worse, and that's the Herschel Walker to the Vikings trade. I think that's the one I look at as like, that the Vikings sold their soul for that one to the Cowboys, and look what it turned into the Cowboys. You know, that's one that resulted in Super Bowls and Hall of Famers. But yeah, I think as far as around the player, like issues around the player, this is the worst, because there were so many red flags in this trade. Like with Herschel, there's like, oh, he's Herschel Walker. Like, let's see if we can get something out of him. This is a situation where there were so many red flags. You knew he was going to be suspended at some point in time. You knew there was going to be issues, and you still did it. I have a hard time looking at that and being like, yeah, you guys were definitely thinking with your heads on this one. Because he was like, nobody in the Browns organization that approved this trade was thinking with their head is the way I look at it. But I also think the same thing about the Vikings. I don't think anybody in their right mind was like, yeah, let's ship everybody out for this. Let's ship all these picks out for this guy. He's going to make the difference. He's going to be the guy that makes the difference for us. And I think that's what the Browns, the part of it I look at too, is like, there was no way it was going to be adjusted to Deshaun fix. You traded away so many potential assets, and they turned into real assets that it's ridiculous, like absolutely absurd. So, yeah, I'm not going to say it's the worst, but it might be 1B and the worst. But I'd say if you like include the outside extracurricular stuff in this one, it makes it hands down the worst for me.
What's even more interesting on top of it is he told you no at one point too. Like you were out of the running. Then it just changed like overnight. Whether it's because he changed his mind or because you decided to offer a whole lot of money on decided to offer that asinine contract. But you got told no, and then tried harder again and got till you got the yes, which makes you look even more desperate on top of it. And then if you look at it's like they traded for a YouTube highlight reel. When you actually went back and like looked at those games that last year where his numbers were astronomically awesome on paper, they were 4-13, I believe it was. He was the best quarterback in his division for one of those 5 years that he was in the league, give or take. Like you gave up a lot for. He was a good player. Like no one's doubted. Like in Houston, he was good, but you saw where the ceiling cap was, and you saw the situation with DeAndre Hopkins, Bill O'Brien, etc. A very good team and a very good player, but you don't give up that much for that when there's that much baggage on top of it. Like there's a reason he had not played the year before, and it wasn't because of a holdout. It wasn't anything like there's for me it is. I get what you're saying too. Like it's just absolutely terrible all around. But it looks like the Haslam's might be indicating that it is that is a turning of the page, which maybe Shedeur Sanders, you might be a Brown. Maybe we will see to be determined. But what you
Maybe
would want
another
to do,
quarterback that used to spend some time in Ohio might be the future quarterback of the Browns. You never know.
maybe a second, hopefully not, but second, third, fourth round Will Howard, maybe a Jalen Milroe sighting, maybe Kyle McCord comes back late in the
Exactly.
draft.
I'm telling
Like
you, man. We'll talk about that later. That's a draft special for you.
yeah, so, you know what? Maybe they just decide to tank it next year and they go all in on Drew Aller, the Cleveland, Ohio kid. Who you never know. Things change. Good luck selling him on tanking twice in a year, but two years in a row. But you never can
Good luck
rule
selling
anything out.
Miles on that one.
Yeah, good look. Well, he's got about 40 million annual reasons why it'll be just fine. But we're gonna go. Speaking of Myles Garrett, we've been talking about baseball bats now, so we're gonna go next. We're gonna go to the baseball field and talk about the Yankees and torpedo bats have taken over MLB. We're not even 2 weeks into the season, and we already have controversy / tomfoolery / whatever in the world is. But more or less, for anyone who is not fully aware, the Yankees decided, you know what, our best defense is going to be offense. We're going to outscore you. That is how we're going to stop you. And thanks partially because of a slight bat variation. In case you can't tell, the top one is said torpedo bat compared to a normal bat where girth is king clearly, and the Yankees have taken full advantage of that, finding ways to, within legal reasons, make the bat the good part of the bat where you want to crank it a little bit thicker so that they can smash it do what the Yankees have done best basically for the last 2 decades and send the ball into the 15th row, or if Aaron Judge is hitting at the 19th row. So torpedo bats, yay, nay, interesting. Still hate the Yankees, but good thinking. What are our thoughts here?
Yeah, I don't care. Look, the MLB needs social media, needs highlights, and needs things to draw attention to it. Because right now, it's of the big three, it's the least effective when it comes to attracting a new generation of fans. If anybody's going to complain about this, it's the old heads, time and time again. You know who's always used these type of bats? Softball. And I'm not talking men's adult softball leagues. I'm talking professional women's softball league in the Olympics. These are the same shape of the bats. They taper off towards the end. They're bigger in the barrel. They taper off towards the end. It's not as drastic looking because the barrels are a lot longer in softball, but in baseball, they're not. They're very short. They're much more compressed barrels. I'm not concerned about this at all. Honestly, I could care less. This is like the last thing that's on my mind because there's so many issues with players trying to hit the ball hard anyways because they're hacking down on the ball. They're worried about launch angle. They're not worried about actually making solid connection. Like, all right, cool. Yeah, give them a big barrel bat. If that makes them happy, if that lets you be excited for these guys to go out there and put on a show, great. I just wish that people would shut up about this because I was making a lot of money on the bets. That's what I'm mad about because now the overs, the lines are all moving up and up and up for the overs. And I'm like, great, there goes my chance at an over. It was like 2-3 runs in a game, and now it's like 6-7 runs in a game. And I was like, I made money on the first series against the Brewers for the Yankees Brewers series. I loved that. Now Thank you, every person who wanted to complain about this and make a big issue because it's the Yankees doing it, for ruining my opportunity to have a sneaky line for the rest of the season. So thank you for ruining my wallet. I appreciate that. But no, honestly, I could care less. There's so many issues, whether it be offense, defense. They don't even know what a strike is anymore. Like, if you're the MLB, embrace this. Let this be the thing. Put this in a commercial with Kurt Schilling and Randy Johnson again, talking about chicks dig the long ball. Do that. Or well, I guess you could do it with the Braves, the old Tom Glavine, Greg Maddux, less problematic individuals. Not that Randy Johnson's a problematic individual, but just like have fun with this if you're the MLB. I don't care. Put a highlight on it. I've seen betting apps now putting a highlight. They call it torpedo madness on most apps. Now it's like cool. Like do something fun with this. Don't make it a big deal. And knowing the MLB, they're gonna outlaw this and it's gonna become a problem yet again, and we're gonna like have all sorts of drama. But no, I don't care. Honestly, let it be fun. Like I still stand by. I don't think the steroid era guys should be out of the Hall of Fame. I think a lot of them should be in their own section of the Hall of Fame because everybody was doing steroids, just like everybody was eating hot dogs and drinking whiskey when Babe Ruth was playing. Like the greats are always going to be
beer.
Beer, whiskey, whatever. Everybody was
whiskey and he gets his own wing altogether. That's a special player. Like he gets his own wing if he's pulling whiskey in the game.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, no, I mean, like honestly, man, give them all the torpedo bats. I don't care. Like,
I was gonna say this makes me feel like just because they're doing it doesn't mean no one else can. There's clearly no rule against they're still using it. Yeah. If you're someone else that's like, look at the Red Sox, Rafael Devers is having trouble hitting the broadside of a barn. Go quit. You are a billions dollars organization. You could find somebody to go craft him a torpedo bat real quickly. It's not that difficult. Someone can do that for you real quick. Like I can't imagine it takes that long. And if it does take a little bit, well, it's worth it either way. Go get go get one. It feels like those trying to outlaw the brotherly push in the NFL. Everybody can do it. Just because one team is doing it better than everyone else doesn't mean you get rid of it. And I feel the same way with the bats because it's within legal regulations. It is, like you said, is proportioned. Like nothing is out. They're not swinging with a damn with a cricket bat. It's not an oar that you row with a kayak or a canoe. It's a baseball bat that's just a little chunky. There's nothing wrong with that. It's literally within regulations. Everyone else should be trying to get a torpedo bat on their team. Can you imagine like a Jose Ramirez with one? Or Steven Kwan, who's already a outstanding hitter? Now you give him something to launch it? Just every team should be looking at like, how do I do that? Immediately they should be like, I want to do that.
Like, it's not like he's hitting with a fungo. He's not like hitting with a cork bat. It's still a solid wood bat. It's just there's more mass in the middle, so it's quicker to swing. There are 16 guys in the major leagues that are confirmed to be using it right now. 16. There are 25 per roster. Just like do the math. We're talking about 3% of it, and because there's 4 Yankees on this list, everybody's like, "Oh God, it's the Yankees." Well, guess what? There's also Mets. There's also Reds. There's also Cubs. There's also Twins. There's also Orioles on this. There's also Blue Jays, and half the people on this list don't even have a home run. Mm-hmm. So, like, who cares, man? People want to complain about baseball, and I get it. I'm a baseball lover, but like, people want to complain about baseball being boring, and this is what makes people complain about baseball being boring. You don't get to have excitement in the stands like every other league does, like Japan or KBL or Mexico does, where they have real supporters. You don't have excitement around the game on social media. You get the most boring things. You don't have creators creating for the MLB because they restrict everything so heavily that you can't even cover the MLB. We put an MLB logo on there. We're going to get shut down next week. Like, that's how stupid this is. And I can't stand it. And the MLB just wants to make dumb complaints, and fans of the MLB who don't understand that things change over time need to grow up, because this is just dumb that people want to make this a big deal. I'll get off my soapbox now.
They're going to torpedo the ratings. They continue to take away everything that's fun like this, and hopefully it's the fact that it's even such a big deal at this point has become a bit of a joke. But speaking of jokes, that's going to transition us now. We're going to get to the third of the major sports. We got some basketball to talk about here, and we're not going to quite go to the obvious one yet. We're going to go to the association, and well, we are rounding out to the regular season. It's close to awards time. We got teams clinching playoff spots, home field fighting for seeding. And apparently we got some stat sheets getting absolutely stuffed on top of it as well, which is where we're going to focus. Nikola Jokic continues to make his realistically, 97% of the time probably would be MVP season. Problem is right now there is a certain man on Oklahoma City that's kind of standing potentially in the way at that point. But Joker decides to stuff the stat sheet in a way only seen 2 other times, ironically both within the last 10 years, with a 61, 10, and 10 game, the third 60-point triple-double so far, including a very, very unique cast of characters. Now is going to put him alongside James Harden from 2018 and Luka Doncic from just last year, as we see their stats on the screen. 61, 10, and 10 for Joker, 60, 10, and 21 for Luka, and 60, 11, and 10 for James Harden. Ironically, all guys that have been lauded for their weight at some point in their career, one way or the other, and yet they still sure do stuff the stat sheet in a way that clearly has not been seen before. But Kelcey, we're going to start with this one. How does Joker keep getting away with it? Like, my goodness, when you watch him play, he can't get over a phone book. But and you look at the stat sheet in the end, you're like, oh, yeah, he did everything, and he did it better than everybody.
The simple answer is I wish I could stuff my face as much as he stuffs the stat sheet on Thanksgiving. That's my simple answer. But no, honestly, I say that jokingly, tongue in cheek, because he's not stuffing. What he's doing is doing the best he can to make his team win. We're talking about a guy who got drafted during a Taco Bell commercial. All right, this guy is a second-round draft pick or end of the first-round draft pick. The latest drafted MVP ever. The guy that has now won his country the most amount of silverware or goldware, really, at this point in time, they've ever seen in world basketball history for that country. And the guy just wants to go and hang out on a farm. And you're going to tell me that it's a crazy thought that this super strong guy who can't jump is going to score 60 points over a bunch of weaklings that like to flop? No. This is honestly, like, really, Joker is just, he's too big, too strong, and he's just a guy that gets things done. I don't care about how beautiful a shot is. Don't get me wrong. I love watching Steph and Clay shoot. But let's be honest, Joker has the biggest joke of a jumper when it comes to how beautiful it looks, and it's so efficient at the same time. And it's because he shoots from weird angles. He's able to adapt on the flow because he's not a guy who can jump over a phone book. As you said, he's not an athletic. He's a fat guy. He's a fat guy. Let's be honest about it. He's a fat guy. Been a fat guy his whole career. We had fat Joker and we had skinny Joker. And the funny thing is, skinny Joker's still fat. So, you know what? At this point in time, the guy's just a crafty individual. And we always talk about, as non-NBA playing people, when we go to the Y and play, and there's always that crafty old guy who's just making jumpers. Joker's been that his whole career. He just makes the shots. He just does what is necessary to get the ball in the net, which at the end of the day, if you're an NBA player, that's what you need. And if you want to win, which he's proven he can, this is what you need. So, yeah, it doesn't shock me in the least that he was going to do something crazy like this. What shocks me is he was the guy that went 10 and 10 on the other two stat lines. That's the part that shocks me because we're talking about one of the best passing big men we've ever seen. And to go and only have 10 assists is the shocking part. So he was doing this despite his team missing, which is, I think, the part of this that's all underrated with Joker is he's doing this and he's carrying his team where in a lot of aspects, the other two guys weren't necessarily that way. I mean, 21 assists for Luka, 11 for James. It's like, yeah, not exactly, getting some much help for Joker. So yeah, I love it. I love that he's doing this, and how he keeps doing it is just because he's that crafty, old, wily veteran at this point in time. He just doesn't care about convention.
You know what he is? If you ever anyone who's watched Adam Sandler play basketball, this is exactly what it is, cranked up to 250 and put in a 7-foot body. Just it makes no sense, but it's so wildly effective. And that's not an insult because Adam Sandler can hoop. Anyone who's actually seen him play those pickup games, that he can legitimately hoop. Just like the weird ability to just throw a perfect pass that looks so awkward. We all saw it. We see Joker's highlight passes. He's obviously 7 feet tall, so he's going to get boards. The outlet passes, the little spin, no look, flippity doo dah, flippity day. His very high arching shot that makes no sense. It always has perfect touch. And he's a 7-foot, incredibly skilled big man. You get him on the block, no one's stopping him. So he can cook like that one in a traditional way while running the point. That is Adam Sandler. If Adam Sandler had an NBA build, that's why I'm going to stick with it. No one's going to tell me otherwise, which is not an insult. That is a compliment to both of them. It's absolutely incredible that he managed to pull off without Jamal Murray and without Michael Porter Jr. too. And against a Timberwolves team that has not beaten them 6 times in a row. It's clearly you see why, because they're like, you know what, Joker, you will literally do everything and we'll find a way, as he's the only one of those 3 that lost in their triple-double 60-point game too and lost by 1 in double overtime. So while I don't love that for the Nuggets coming in the playoffs, where a 60-point triple-double with that level of efficiency can happen and you lose, at least we get to watch Joker. Let's not let this turn into like prime LeBron or prime Kobe where we don't enjoy it in the moment while it's happening. Let's continue to enjoy this while it's happening, because if we made a top 20 NBA players all-time list, Joker's not 20. He's not 19. He's not 18. Like I would comfortably put him in top 15 right now. And he's still very much got a lot of time left. So I think what he's doing is absolutely sensational. That being said, the Nuggets are cooked. I don't think they're going very far. They got their ceiling feels like second round because their defense is terrible as a team, and it's pretty much Jokic. Can you get a triple double and save us? He's gonna be the third player to ever average a triple double in NBA history, and it's still not even enough half the time. Their offense is literally Joker save us, LeBron Cavaliers at this point. Not the second iteration, but the first one, or maybe even the 2018 iteration too.
The Delonte West edition.
Yeah, or like the second iteration, the very back end of it with J.R. Smith and the meme that we all know so well. Maybe like those versions, but that's absolutely incredible. So we'll get out of this part on this. Of the 3 triple doubles, which one's your favorite?
I think Lucas. The 21 assists is insane. That's an insane stat part. If he had a 10-10 and 21 game, that's insane. So exactly. 60-10 and 21 is insane.
We're on the same page with that one too. I mean, they're all ridiculously impressive, but when you throw a 2 instead of a 1 in front of any of those things, that's absolutely incredible. But let us know down in the comments which of the triple doubles that you all thought was the best one. And that's now going to transition us into the main event. And for the main event, we're not going to go very far because we're staying on the hardwood, but we are going into the Final Four for the NCAA for March Madness is officially set. We now know 4 number 1 seeds will be taking the court with a chance to head to the national championship game. As we take a quick gander at the bracket, Duke, Auburn, Florida, Houston. So the people who just randomly picked it because they just picked the favorites the whole way, they're doing best right now. The people like us who have been doing brackets for over a decade and know it never goes like that except for once, we are wrong. It's unfortunately more often than not. So, I want to kind of start as those who look at it too. Of these 4 teams, I'm curious what your thoughts, but it feels like the best teams in the tournament has been Duke. It feels like they've cooked pretty much everyone they played. Florida has shown a very interesting ability to start slow but catch absolute fire at the end of it. They'll be a little bit slow, and then we saw it against Texas Tech. They were dead in the water, but then they had a sprinting comeback. We saw Houston. I feel like the only team that really I thought could give them trouble is Tennessee, and they shut Tennessee's offense down, so that was kind of cake in that region. And then your Auburn Tigers. Watching them is pure and utter chaos, but they find a way to get it done every time. Like against Creighton, it's pure and utter chaos. It doesn't look pretty, doesn't look great, but it always works, and they win comfortably more often than not. So I'm curious what your thoughts are seeing these Final Four number 1 seeds the second time that it's ever happened. The last time, 2008, with Russell Westbrook, Mario Chalmers, Derrick Rose, and those guys, and Tyler Hansbrough.
And then never before. Let's just throw that out there.
Never before, and never since until now.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree that Duke's been one of the best teams, but I do disagree that they are the best team so far in this tournament. I do think it's Houston. I do think the Cougars are that team right now. What they did to Gonzaga was just a close game, but it was still a 5-point game, and it wasn't a 5-point game. It's a 5-point game, but it's a gift of a 5-point game. Shutting down Purdue like they did, it's a 2-point game, but again, shutting them down the way they did was impressive. They fooled probably one of the smartest teams on the court at any given point in time. Purdue is hands down, in my opinion, this year, one of the smartest, most intelligent basketball IQ teams on the court. And they made them look silly when it mattered. And that was the impressive part about what Houston was able to do. And then shutting down Tennessee, that was my pick to go to the championship game. And shutting them down easily, it felt like. That's an impressive matchup. And yeah, I think Houston, top to bottom, has had a very interesting path this season. It's not been the easiest path for any 1 seed, but at the same time, it's been one of the more intriguing ones where you're just like, wow, this team might surprise some people when it comes to March. Duke, you already knew. Cooper Flagg is consensus top 2 pick this year in the draft. Yeah, he's probably not 2. And wouldn't surprise me if he's the Naismith Naismith Player of the Year. Just because they love to give it to freshmen. But I'll say, Auburn's not bad, but yeah, they've been a heart attack in this tournament. Florida has been good across the board, but that UConn matchup in the second round was rough. And outside of that, though, Florida is a team that needs to be reckoned with. They just didn't have a great regular season. But yeah, I don't know. I love how everything's set up and how it shook out. I hate that Auburn has to play Florida to get to the championship game because it's the team that knocked them out in the SEC championship game or SEC championship, and so that sucks. But at the same time, I'm very interested to see who can get through and get to the next round. But I think Houston to me is like the best team so far this tournament, personally, just from how they fought through it. I don't think Duke got challenged at any point in time, and that's the difference here.
Do you think Houston gets by Duke? Are you picking the Cougars to get by the Blue Devils?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with my original pick that the team facing Duke gets past Duke. But yeah, I just don't think they've been challenged. I think Houston has the ability to challenge Duke in ways nobody else has. And let's not forget, Auburn beat Duke this season. And so if Auburn can do it, and I'm saying Houston's better than Auburn right now, I think Houston can do it to Duke. Because they're very similar in their defensive first mindset, and inbound plays are important. They're not reliant on a freshman that is dominant, and he does the same stupid free throw line curl action every single time, and he's always open because can't foul a kid that good. But yeah, you know what? Houston can play all around offense and play all around defense, and I think that's what's going to be the difference in the two.
I want to stick with Duke because for some reason 2025 is the year of Coopers, as we have seen from Cooper DeJean to now Cooper Flag. They have a lot of things in common, and by a lot I only mean a couple. But I feel like it's been a very good playoff run for the both
Their
of them.
name and that seasoning, right?
The name, the seasoning, and the athletic ability is what we'll call it. But I think defensively, they're both, like you said, they're very similar. I think that's why Duke was able to run through Alabama as comfortable as they were, because they can still put up buckets, but they actually play defense, where Alabama's defense is more buckets. So I think that's where I'm going to take Duke, because I think their offense is still a little bit cleaner. And I think when it comes to just crunch time, get a bucket, they have a couple of guys that can do that. Where Houston, they do, but I think Duke just has theirs is a little bit better. They're okay. We need the bucket guys are just a touch better, but covered that side of the bracket. We now got to get to the one that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt you a little bit. Auburn taking on Florida. Question is, they've given you a heart attack pretty much every round outside of round one, really. And even round one, they gave you a heart attack for the first 10 minutes. Then after that, they tore away. Do your Tigers get past Florida? Do they find a way to get past the Gators, get a little redemption, and take on, in this case for you, Houston?
So, depends on health. Janai Broom getting hurt at the end of the last round, probably the most terrifying moment of my watching March Madness this year. And I'm not even coming close to like a second place, because it wasn't just the ankle; it was also the arm. And I think the right arm, when him coming in late and not being able to move that right arm, really solidified. Oh boy, this is going to be very interesting going into the Final Four, if they even made it. Because I honestly didn't at that point in time. I didn't know if they were going to get through. I had hope, but I didn't know. But I do think Auburn has the depth. I think what Denver Kelly and squad can do is going to be very interesting, because Florida, we already know they are very efficient half-court offense. By the way, fun fact for this Final Four before I go any further in this conversation. All four of this qualifies for that Ken Palm top 25 offense defense efficiency. So fun fact, all four of them are in there. So it's going to confirm it for another year. But anyways, because of that, so Florida is a great half-court offense, but defensively they're even better. And that's what scares me for Auburn is defensively they can match up with Auburn when Auburn goes best on best. It's when Auburn decides to go small or go big that they have a potential advantage over Florida. And can Bruce Pearl make the right adjustments in this game and get to the hot hand quick? And can Auburn actually hit their free throws? Are my big determining whether they can get through this, because Florida's going to hit their free throws. They're, I think, an 80% free throw shooting team. Auburn has their best player, a Naismith Player of the Year candidate, shooting 54% in the season. So, take that for what it's worth. I mean, don't get me wrong, end of the game, I'll take one or two 9 times out of 10, but still doesn't give me hope. So, it's Auburn has the work cut out for them, but I think best on best, it's going to be a close game. I think the difference here is if the head coaches can make the right adjustments early. Because if Auburn goes into this game slow and gets to halftime like they have been, I don't have a lot of hope for Auburn. But if they can get to halftime on top, that's going to give me a lot more hope, because it's a second half team. If they can go in on top, I think that's the huge key there coming out of the second half. because Florida is a first half team. They are a front runner. They will love to get in front and stay in front because then they can impose their will defensively. And I think that's the thing Auburn, we've seen it in the tournament, struggle with the pressure. And so if they can get ahead, they have the best opportunity to win. So there you go.
I will say what's interesting is Auburn has such a seasoned team too. Is what I think that their average age is like the same as Oklahoma City's or something ridiculous like that.
24.
Like like that, which is absolutely crazy. So the experience wise, I think that is in their favor. If it gets close down the stretch, I do like their composure in those situations, assuming it doesn't come down to free throws, of course. But if it's a relatively nip and tuck game, I think if like what happened with Florida and Texas Tech, if Auburn is able to jump on them at any point, I think they have the ability to not let Florida go on those insane rallies where they like Walter Clayton can run to the layup line, run all the way back to the 3-point line, and just pull one up to tie it up. By the way, what an insane tournament he's having. He's been so good, you forget his name is Walter. That's how awesome he has been. He has been so dynamic. And
I got one better for you. He's been so good, you forget where he started his college run at.
It's true too.
North Dakota State for anybody questioning.
He's been absolutely sensational, and I think if they can it's very cliche and it's very obvious. If they can keep him from going ballistic, like what he did in the second half against Texas Tech, what he did early on in the tournament, basically when he's going ballistic, Florida's pretty much unbeatable because their front line is so good. They have the ability to spread the ball around, but it really does kind of start and roll with him, especially in that starting lineup. He is kind of the engine that makes it goes. In this game, you got to expect them to play him like of the 38 minutes or something like that. You got to imagine they're not going to pull him out too often. I think if Auburn can keep him, even when he was struggling shooting against Texas Tech, he got to the free throw line more times than the Texas Tech all combined, it felt like. They just got to find a way to keep him from taking over the game. And I think Auburn's by committee has a good chance and opportunity to advance. And in this case, I'd have him playing Duke.
Yeah, so I don't. I'm still sticking with my Auburn-Houston matchup. I mean, or Auburn and team against Duke matchup, which, by the way, 50% for the Final Four, I'll take it. 60% for my bracket. So, not bad.
You know, that's not too bad, especially considering we tend to be the ones that overthink things and try and make it smart, which has not been very favorable. It's favorable for us this year because it's been chalk madness instead of March madness. I mean, how many actual upsets have we seen? Like 5, it feels like. Even the lower seeds that did win, like in Memphis and Colorado State was favored. So it was hardly even an upset at that point. Everyone knew Memphis was going out.
Let's not forget the real upset here.
I know there was McNeese State. Like, that was the real upset. I'm saying there's only a handful of real upsets, too. And then there was Arkansas, St. John's. But comparatively, we didn't have any. Like, we didn't have a whole lot of Cinderella this year by comparison, to the point where it was 1 versus 2, 1 versus 2, 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3. And now it's 1 versus 1 versus 1 versus 1. So my thought is, do you think this is a one-off, or do you think this might be something that's going to continue? Do you think it's going to be chalk madness continuing, or maybe it was just how this season played out?
I think a lot of it was just how the season played out. But I will say that NIL is a great equalizer here, people. And I think we've all seen this going into the Sweet 16 and Elite 8. That stat or that graphic that has the where did they start at, where Purdue was the only team with all 5 players starting at that school, still on the roster. I mean, Auburn was playing. It has a guy that started at Auburn playing still or played in the Elite 8. I mean, like, you know, there are guys. Actually, I said Clayton is North Dakota State, Alabama guys all over the place. Michigan State guy, he was from Alabama originally. Like, Duke has 4 out of their 5 starters starting at Duke. So yeah, it's one of those situations where you look at it and it's like, all right, well, how do we get the best teams to win? How do you get the biggest moneymakers to win? When it came to March, it wasn't just like the surprise teams every time. NIL was a great equalizer. Does it surprise anybody? Because if it does, I will introduce you to how dollars work. Because the bigger the bank account you have, the more you can probably try to buy if you're actually smart with how you work NIL. But yeah, I think the teams that are here left in the Final Four, it makes sense that they're here. They did the most to improve their basketball programs, improve their teams year in and year out. And they did this smart thing where they have a good mix of young freshmen that are talented, as well as talented, as you mentioned with Auburn, a lot of experience. But their point guard is a freshman. So it's like, it's one of those things where across the board, could go both ways. But NIL seemed to be the great equalizer in all of this. And you saw NIL impact with some of these mid-majors like Drake and McNeese, where they have money. These schools do have the money to win. and you saw them coming and playing. Like they came in with talented individuals ready to play, and these guys maybe weren't D1 top talents because they are getting guys straight out of the portal. They went to a mid-major like Drake or McNeese, and that's how you got your upsets this year, where the guys that probably should have gone to these top tier blue chip teams didn't go there because of the portal. So now they get funneled down the way to the mid majors, and they're still showing up. And I will say, I think basketball is the one place you can say that talent will find itself in college basketball. Like talent will be found, and it's proof year in and year out. But like it's even more so this year. Like you see it impacting in the transfer portal. You see what happens when the transfer portal players go to blue chips, and instead freshmen have to go to mid majors and kind of develop. You see how well they can develop in this stuff, and because those are the teams that you have to look for upsets with. And so yeah, I think the upsets we saw made sense. And that's the scariest part. We didn't have the shock upset, the 16-1, the 15-2. It wasn't like anything like that. I mean, if anybody thought McNeese over Clemson was a shock, please go watch our episode before that and look at our picks. Because this, I think it's one of those things that NIL is always going to be a great equalizer. And this is what I want. I want to see the NIL work this way because it's improving not just the blue chips, but it's improving the mid majors because they're getting better freshman talent out of all of this. And I think that's the part of this that's undersold on all the NIL. But yeah, I don't know. I don't mind.
What I thought was always interesting is previous years you'd look for like an experienced, a veteran team that had some good players that had been around for a while. That was maybe a smaller school, lower seed. They were the ones that were ready for March Madness because those big blue chip schools like Calipari's Kentucky Wildcats were always pure freshmen. They were always quote unquote ripe for the pick, and if you catch them at the right time.
Yeah.
A lot of those teams, even Duke with Krzyzewski, all of the one and dones or 1.5 and dones. So you'd find those guys with the 3-year player who's really good.
In Kyrie.
Exactly. Gonzaga always had those multi-year guys during their run too. Like you looked for those teams that had experience to kind of knock off the blue chip schools that were dominant during the regular season because you just had to get them one time. Now those guys that were really good on those, as you mentioned, after the 2 or 3 years, they end up going to Duke or to Auburn or to Kentucky, et cetera, et cetera. So those smaller schools are, like you said, probably using freshmen who aren't quite as experienced and they haven't been through the trenches quite as much. So it kind of does shake it a little upside down. I obviously kind of liked it better when we'd see the occasional 14 destroy everybody's bracket. However, I think it's going to bounce back out. It's also, you say that because it's always your bracket that got destroyed.
It was always my bracket because that was the one upset I don't pick out of the round, and it's like the one that ruins me.
Every single time. I think it will balance itself back out too. I think it's just, it's very fluctuating. If it was all the way here, the pendulum swings all the way here, it'll fluctuate back to the median soon enough. But I do think this year and probably next year, I think it's going to be a lot more chalk madness for sure. The best regular season teams are probably going to go just as far, but I think eventually it will balance out to the mean for sure. But I think this year it sucks to be someone who's done brackets for so long because you ended up overthinking it. Especially if I think a lot of times a lot of people overthought it. They're like, it's not going to be all 4 1 seeds. There's no way. I got to knock one of them out earlier. Sure enough.
Oh, every one of my other brackets, I literally put a non-1 seed in the Final Four because I'm like, I know it's not going to be top 4. It's never happened in 20 or almost 20 years. Like, why is it going to happen now? But yeah, I agree. But look, I'll say this. And you say the pendulum is going to swing. I think the big thing is going to change is when we see things like what we see in the football side of things, where you hear about Eastern Michigan offering a guy $1 million to enter the portal and come to Michigan. Come to Eastern Michigan. Eastern Michigan. Go play at the Gervin Athletic Center is where they play basketball at. And the George Gervin Athletic, or Rise Above Center, there you go. That's the name of the arena they play in. But it's one of those things like for college football, that it's there. Basketball, this is a really first full year. It feels like we've seen a lot of quality NIL work. And I think once you see the mid-majors and some of the sneaky Big Five schools, like Colorado potentially, who has a lot of money coming in, who could just sneak in here, and by the way, was in the tournament this year, but who can just sneak in and make an impact because they have all this bankroll now. I think that's going to be the ones that are going to be the ones to watch in the future. But yeah, I agree. I think it's a pendulum, like all things.
I think one thing that will definitely, make March Madness very interesting. I know the idea had been floated before is eliminating the one and done rule. Let the kids from high school that want to go to enter the draft right away, just let them enter. If you go to college, you have to stay for 2 years. Like make it a 2-year minimum or something like that. It doesn't have to be the full 3 like NFL, but I think if you make it 2 years, that's going to make it really interesting because those kids that you talk about, they're going to just go straight to the NBA if they have the opportunity, which I think might be 5 a year that actually go and have a
There's
realistic
there's
shot.
gonna be more that try it, but I also think just like they have it now, like you can enter the NBA draft as a college player and then pull your name out if you don't sign anything. If you're a high school player, do the same thing and
Exactly.
take your chances in college.
And if you're someone that's maybe good in high school, but you know you're not going to get drafted, like that's going to be 60 pick, that's not yours, go to that Duke or something like that. Get your chance, get yourself in there early, or go to that smaller program. Then you might see like that second, third year guys kind of spring and then ends up getting the upset over Duke, something like that. So I think that's one thing that might help it as well. Basketball's unique as with NIL, where football is kind of seamless. Is just all right. We're throwing money. Come get it while you can. You'll be here the same amount of time. So I think that'll
It's a
that'll
lot more
spur.
developmental with basketball than college football. Like you actually have a developmental path. It's very obvious for D1. Like mid major is where you start if you're a freshman, and then you work your way up after a good year, and that's no problem. Some of these schools in mid majors are always really good too. So I don't know.
Exactly.
There's
Like
plenty of it. There, Donovan Mitchell, that's a mid major program, Weber State. So
I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of it's going to change a lot, but I'm still next year previewing it now. I'm going to wait till I actually see the college basketball season next year. But my prediction next year is it's going to be chalk madness next year again. But that is not advice, so don't take that gambling advice based on what I said whatsoever. That is an assumption before this year's is even done. But that's going to wrap it up here for the main event, which will take us into what is usually Kelsey's favorite part of every show. That is, of course, Crunch Time. And for Crunch Time, it's just a quick reminder for all of you NFL fans out there. If you haven't been keeping track of, we are still courting Kelcey, still on the path to see if we can find his next NFL team. We've had a host of pitches made to him, and if you want to make your pitch heard, go and reach out to us on social medias with a 30 to 90 second video pitch of why Kelcey should join the fandom of your favorite NFL team. There's plenty of leeway right now. It's still very up in the air. If you want to get your pitch in before the NFL draft, it is highly encouraged because you never know. The draft might sway him a little bit harder one way or the other, or it might push him farther away from some than others, especially with his years of being a fan of a certain team, that the draft has more often than not made him want to scratch his head. So once again, be sure to get all your pitches in.
Yeah, and I got some fun adventures coming up soon. Maybe some recruiting trips. We'll see. Coming up in April, before and after the draft. So yeah, we'll see if anybody can sway me on those recruiting trips too.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate y'all so much for hanging out with us here to talk about what's going on in the wide world of sports. Be sure to follow us on all socials and go ahead and message us if you have anything you want us to talk about, or if you just want to court Kelcey your favorite team, or if you just want to say hello and tell us how handsome we look today. We appreciate y'all so much for hanging out with us, and we'll see you all again next time.